Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Too Many Men podcast. My name is Alison Lucan, and I am delighted to be joined by, we talk about how Sara Civian is brilliant in a million ways. But one of my favorite flavors of Sara Civian is when she uses her not just quick wit, but extreme intelligence to just shut down stupid people on the internet. And we're going to get into that. But I think it is a true mark of brilliance to be funny, clever, and absolutely a not shit taker all at one time in split second reaction. Sara Civian, our genius. How the hell are you today?
Oh, I'm good. Yeah, I was in the zone yesterday. Sometimes I just can't do it with people who are so, uh, I don't know if people are operating in bad faith or they're just that stupid. But either
Or
way,
both.
get
Who's to
out,
say?
leave me alone. Leave me alone. Do it yourself over there.
All right. We, of course, would not be Too Many Men if we didn't have. I don't know how this happens. I don't know how the go-to for playoff coverage in more ways than one, be it video content, be it instant reaction and analysis, or be it written content on The Athletic, also revives her upcycle business in the middle of the Stanley Cup final. Girlfriend, ability to do a bazillion things. Shayna Goldman, say hi.
Hi.
Good job. Look at that. We got through. That's one of our quickest ever. We're back in form just as the hockey season for the men ends. All right. We are here to talk about so much that's going on. And of course, we always start with the most important headlines. Sara Civian, what time is it?
I'm working late because I'm a singer, blogger, freelancer. Okay.
What
You
time
know
is
what?
it?
Here's what you guys will like. I love Sabrina.
Wait,
You guys
Sarah
can't
hasn't
yell
told
at
us what
me.
time it is
Sorry,
yet.
what time is it?
It's time for that me espresso and the bit of news.
The Biddo News. Go ahead, Shayna. Tell us your love now.
I love Sabrina Carpenter, and like you guys should really appreciate that because I feel like we always like butt heads on this kind of stuff. Like
Yes.
we love Sabrina in this house.
She's a true
Hey.
pop girly, like Britney Spears is
She
back.
like it's the pop music revival is amazing, but she is like that true mini Polly Pocket pop star. Everything, the vibes, the outfit, the makeup. Big fan.
She's funny. We like funny girls. Anyways, hockey.
Anyway, let's get to hockey. We are going to start with a whole bunch of off ice changes in our Bit O News, and there's a lot of staff changes. Let's start at the top of the food chain, and that is changes that involve an outgoing and a upgoing in relation to the Carolina Hurricanes. Let's talk about them in chronological order. First, a week or so ago, when we said we were going to wait till all the chips had falled. What the hell is that word? Fallen officially. Carolina Hurricanes GM Don Waddel leaves Carolina and heads up in the Metro Division a little bit north, closer to his home in Michigan, to now be the new GM of the Columbus Blue Jackets. There's a lot to do there to retool that roster. We'll talk about some of those specifics in a little bit. But Sara, this is an organization that you are familiar with, that you used to cover and you still pay attention to as an NHL beat writer. What is your take on, big picture, the departure of Don Waddel from Carolina, and what might Blue Jackets fans expect with him now at the helm for their organization?
Yeah, I think Don has a dry humor that you don't really understand until he's the GM of your team. Like he makes some jokes and he's good vibes. You understand why he gets along with everybody in the league. Sometimes you get these deals, at least in Carolina. You're like, how did he do that? And it's kind of because he's that like everybody's grandpa. But he's also smart, obviously, but very. I think he was in need of a fresh start because, I mean, people forget he was in Atlanta, then not the best time there with kind of the small market, whatever it was, situation. Then you got his resurgence in Raleigh, but I feel like he didn't really get a lot of credit because of people like Eric in his front office who were so good, and because of Rod Brindamore and Tom Dundon. Like they're all very hands-on And that's how it all worked, by committee. But I think he really wanted to just kind of go off by himself and show at the end of his career that he was part of that too. I feel like he kind of got his talents maybe got a little swept under the rug. So you can expect somebody kind of looking to make his own statement.
Shayna, to that point, and if anybody watched his press conference in Columbus, there were definitely some LOL moments in terms of his responses to questions. But when you look at this from building an organizational perspective, and we know Columbus is a young team hoping to really capitalize on some young talent they've been able to bring in the last couple of years. When you look at Don Waddell's track record, what bodes well for you in terms of him leading Columbus, and what are maybe some question marks you have, if you have any?
I mean, I think he knows how to spend on a budget, which is important to do. I think that the budget that he had was a little too restrictive, but I think you need to be creative, especially because they already have a lot of contracts on the books that you have to work around, right? And in this league, in a cap world, you have to be smart. So there you go. That's check one. The other thing is I think he's been doing a good job, and listen, like it was an organizational thing in Carolina, but he did a good job knowing the pieces you can replace within their system and just keep churning out the same results, right? Like which players do you need to stay to kind of anchor everything and which are replaceable, which is a plus. And I think it's that he's shown like he's willing to use different ideas and, perspectives and mindsets throughout the whole organization, which you want to have in today's game, right? Like it's an edge if you look at different viewpoints, perspectives, and tools that you have at your disposal. If you're closed-minded, it doesn't help you. So I think those are the things that we've learned from him so far and you want to see carry over.
Awesome. Any red flags for you?
Good question. I mean, yes and
They
no.
don't
I feel
have
like
to be.
every general manager has a couple red flags that you're like, that's a choice. And some of it's like decisions they make or personalities brought in. So it'll be really interesting to see like how that all works, especially because like the Blue Jackets are in a really tricky spot. But you know what? I kind of like that he just walked in, he got rid of the coach and was like, let's cook. So I'm like, you know what? All the flags are at a low position right now.
Excellent. I wanted to ask about that. Let's look at some of the big questions that seem to be rising to the forefront in Columbus. Maybe these are worth dissecting. Maybe they're not. There is, as Shayna mentioned, one of the last coaches to fall. We've seen a lot of changes, and we've seen almost all the positions filled now, except for Columbus, because Pascal Vincent, who came in relief, literally for Mike Babcock, again, not a good call, with days before training camp, is in 1 year as the head coach after being an assistant coach with Columbus for multiple years and is now out. You have seen the Columbus media really rally around him. Aside from whether or not he was successful as a head coach in that 1 year, you can see people really trying to define the narrative that this is an individual who shouldn't be judged by his 1 year just because the situation was just so completely shitty and insane. Sara, if you were covering a team that was looking for a new head coach, and unfortunately most of those jobs are filled, which again is part of the shitty timing, even though it's what it had to be, what would your take be on this coach and based on what we saw literally for just one season, if any?
It wasn't great. I mean, like under the circumstances, what can you do? I know that people like him as a person and people like playing for him, but I just don't think it's worth it in an era where so many new coaches are on the rise. Like maybe get him back in the assistant coaching on a better team and see what else people can squeeze out of him. But I'm not like super convinced. There was a lot of not playing the younger players that was baffling, right? Like give them their minutes. There's nothing going on here.
And with so many positions already being filled with a lot of the names that had been circulating as top candidates, now Columbus does have to fill a spot. Aaron Porchline wrote a piece on The Athletic of some of who he thinks might be prime candidates. Shayna, are there names that you're looking at that you think might be a fit in Columbus?
I mean, I do want to see a new name get circulated in there, right? Like, I think I really like the Sharks hire. I feel like that's a name we've heard for a while, but like, it's tough because I guess technically the Blue Jackets can feel like they already went with that new name in Pascal Vincent. And I think I'm like having such a hard time with this one because for all of the reasons, see why he was fired. And I feel like everything went wrong in his Blue Jackets tenure. And I know you could look at it and say, well, he had no time to prepare, but I'm also like, yeah, but you were hired to be a coach on this team. So you had that familiarity that Some don't. Like, look at Chris Knobloch. He was in the Rangers farm system. He did not expect to go to Edmonton. Look at what he's done. So I feel like Knobloch should be your encouraging point to go after someone different and someone new versus more of the same, because you don't want to see a retread like, I don't know, like a Gerard Gallant get another go back to Columbus, really, just because they feel like they need to go that experience route. And that was their intention with Babcock in the first place. So I'll be really curious, but I feel like they need to bring in someone who legitimately can work with young talent and bring that human element that it seems like the Blue Jackets so sorely need.
There's another big ticket headline that's coming across the airwaves, and my head is like literally exploding. And let me be very clear first and foremost, I think this person is a phenomenal person and I think has had a much harder road than others. But Patrik Laine seemingly has requested a change of scenery, which means that the Blue Jackets are going to try and effort a trade. And I know a lot of small market teams get their hackles up about this, but everyone's like, oh yeah, of course, bring him. He's going to be awesome. He's so good. Like, people, with all due, Patrik Laine can do one thing, and that is shoot the puck. If he's going to go to a team, he has to go to a team that is built to facilitate everything else and cover up everything else. And meanwhile, all these teams are like, ooh, they should get Patrik Laine because he can score. If he could score regardless of situation, he would have been scoring in Columbus, and he didn't. Sara, what do you make of the Patrik Laine discourse going on right now?
Yeah, first of all, I get why he'd want a change of scenery for multiple reasons. Like, even though they probably want to change the scenery from him too, like it's not all on the team. He's had
100%.
a pretty rough go of it, and I know that he's struggled with mental health and stuff, so I understand wanting to change the scenery for that reason. But you're absolutely right about the on ice. You need to be like, you're not going to get the defense out of him. It's just like, he is who he is at this point. And if you need like I don't know, like the Panthers needed a Tarasenko type situation, it's like, if that's what you're seeking, he might be good. What kind of contract are we looking at? What does the return even go for? That's the next question, obviously.
Absolutely. To that point, Shayna, my actual hot take is very much like Sara said, like just like a Tarasenko just comes in and compliments of Florida. The trade is going to have to maybe involve some salary retained by Columbus, but honestly, like, send him to Edmonton where he can go in and slot into a really competitive, really talented team and just be that one trick pony. Is there a place that you think he actually could thrive?
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to give him a little more credit, because you look at not last year, this past year, because he only played 18 games, the 2 years before that, like, he picked up the pace with his passing a little bit and was actually good at like entering the zone possession. So I would like to see what he can do in a new environment. I just don't think Columbus was that. But yeah, I think the Canes make a ton of sense if Jake Gensel walks as a free agent, because he needs defensive structure, right? That's the hole in his game. And I think he needs to go to a team where they just need him on the wing and not at center, because he's way too exposed at center. So the Canes feel like that team. They have all this two-way talent up front. They have a great blue line on the back end. And obviously we'll see what that looks like when the season starts. And they have some good playmakers, so he could be that true sniper that fits in there. I love Edmonton for him, but I think you have to get out of like an Evander King contract to make that one happen. But that is the move I would.
What a shame.
Oh no, what a shame there. Even the Devils make sense, because you look at their top six, they only have one right-handed shot in the top six, and that's Dawson Mercer, who's not a bona fide top six player, because Sheldon Keefe might want to see him at 3C. So they're a little bit looser defensively, but now that they have a true number one goalie, like, I'm intrigued by that. I think that there are fits, and I think that there's going to be teams like Montreal and Chicago who are going to look at him and they can take on more of the cap. And for Montreal, I think it makes sense in some ways, but the volatility of those teams defensively really worries me. Like, how would his tenure be different there versus what it was in Columbus?
100%. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where he
Oh
goes.
shit, I forgot my favorite one though, Nashville. I literally wrote about this yesterday. My brain is so fried in the last 24 hours. Fuck, the Predators or the Utahs are all playmakers. I was looking at like their all three zones, how many playmakers they have and how few shooters they have. I really like the idea of him on either of those teams.
Well, we will see where he goes. Again, I think this is a player with one really exceptional talent. And if he's put in a situation to succeed, he can. And to Sara's point, first and foremost, we wish for true mental health and happiness and full recovery for him, because I've not heard a single bad thing about this person as a human, and that's the most important outcome of all. So those are some of the items facing the former Carolina Hurricanes GM. Let's switch over to who is the new Carolina Hurricanes GM. And it is someone, and I think if you are on social media and not an idiot, you can see that most people were delighted to see that Eric Tulsky has been elevated to the position of general manager after serving as an assistant general manager and literally working his way up from being a blogger for the Flyers up and into being a contractor for teams, and then eventually being hired by Ron Francis into the Hurricanes organization. I think what's getting lost, everyone's circulating this man's resume, which is literally probably the most impressive resume in the world. Like, the easiest thing he did was get 27 patents. Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about? But I think what people need to pay attention to is two things. First of all, everyone is talking about what a good person Eric Tulsky is, and how, and, you know, Sara just talked about relationship building and that kind of thing, and how important that is, not just in hockey, but folks in life. Let's all be good people. But secondarily, and there's a great book out there for people who actually take time to educate themselves. It's called Range. It's on Shayna's bookshelf somewhere, usually back there. And it talks about how diversity of experience and diversity of thought betters organizations, be they sports or otherwise. And Sara, I'm just going to turn the floor over to you, because again, the Canes are an organization you know well. You tweeted out in celebration of Eric Tulsky's promotion and seemed to draw up what is a new low for the dregs of critical thinking on Twitter.
I really think, let me say this, yesterday, now that the likes are hidden and stuff, I think Elon's doing something more sinister. I think he's making people that don't agree with each other look at each other's content or something. My mentions have never been worse. Maybe it's because, I mean, people with blue checks suck, or like whatever it is. But I feel like the responses I'm getting are just fucking infuriating. Like, all I said, first of all, this is a white man with a Harvard degree. We're not like, yes, the Canes diversity hire. It's like the whitest, most brilliant person. Like, I like, man, like, I don't know what triggered people. I guess when I say diversity is good, 700 people saying, well, there's no proof. They're trying to they're trying to do both sides. I don't like the bad faith. Say, I don't like women and people of color. Say that. Do not say there's no proof that diversity is good. Like, what? Say with your chest what you mean, please. And I have no tolerance for that type of shit anymore. So it's just like, what did I say? Just, he's under this smart Harvard man with 27 patents, a chemist, like, has understood that diversity is really conducive to winning. And there are several studies out there that are saying, just like, it's like, there's one in particular that there was this sensor-driven hand washer for bathrooms, and they didn't have any black people in the room.
Oh,
when
I
they were
remember
making
this.
it.
Yeah.
And it only worked for white people, because black people, like, they had a different skin color that set off the sensors. So that's a bad product. That's a faulty product. Different experiences and different walks of life. It doesn't mean hire an idiot that has a different skin color. And nobody is saying that, so it's so exhausting every single time to say that. But guess who's an NHL GM? Somebody who understands that. Guess who isn't? You with your Peppy the Frog Twitter picture. Like, I don't even know what that is, the little right-wing meme. But I'm just sick of people coming at me just with no proof, saying that I have no proof. And I'm like, I do have proof. Then they go away. I realized I accidentally took double my ADHD medication yesterday. So this morning I woke up and realized that. So I was going off. I was in the zone. I finished my article early and I had the time. I'm not going to have the time today. But Eric is a brilliant man who, brilliance is understanding that, right? He's always been really great to work with, and he's introduced some great people to the Hurricanes front office.
And I made the point, because I jumped in, because, you know, when someone comes after my girls here, I am going to come back in a rage tweet and respectfully hockey is behind the other major sports in terms of how they are evolving the way they present information to fans, how low cap friendly, the way they present data to fans, the way that they are evolving their leadership styles and the way they're building organizations. That's okay as long as they keep making progress. But there are, in fact, examples. You look at the Yankees, there's a great book called Inside the Empire that details how not just the bringing in of analytics, but also just bringing in different people who think about solving problems differently can, in fact, elevate you to championship level status. And we were all just talking before we recorded. Eric Tulsky had his first availability as GM this morning. And I laughed when I saw one of his quotes was, "We didn't hire ChatGPT as our GM." Shayna, as much as we celebrate how smart Eric Tulsky is, what are people who maybe aren't familiar with him, either his work or him as a human, what do people need to understand about why this hire is important and how it can help the Hurricanes?
You hit two books on my shelf already. Like, let's go, let's keep it up. And I found range. It's over there. It used to be over there.
I know, you always move
There we
it.
go.
Because it's a range.
You know
You have
what?
a
The
range
shelf-
of locations.
A range. And it definitely had nothing to do with the fact that the shelves started slanting and everything was falling and I had to redo everything and bolt them to the wall because idiot me built bookshelves up doing that. But listen, this is why I'm not in carpentry. Who knew? So Eric
Sabrina
Tulsky,
Carpenter. Shayna Carpenter.
there we go.
Ooh.
Rich
She
calls
wore
me
a
Shay the
shirt once
Builder
that
because
said
I
she's
built
a
everything here.
carpenter. Yeah.
I sing the Bob the Builder song.
Your Noah's
Anyway,
Ark.
so,
Okay, anyway.
Oh my
okay.
goodness.
So Eric Tulsky is like really good as everything and more. You look at the foundation of hockey analytics work and you're gonna find his work if you went back. I wish meta hockey would come back because it was like the perfect way to like search up names, but you can go find his stuff. He did really great work on zone entries and data tracking and started those big projects. His work on aging curves, how NHL players age, how shooters versus passers, how power play production, how all of that ages, how regular season play translates to the postseason. Like he has done it all and more and came up the ranks and has worked his ass off to do it. You think about how smart he is and how he's able to translate that because
Yes.
it's right. That's the hardest part of it. You can understand data and you can understand hockey, but you have to be able to do it in a way to translate it to the average person or to maybe a former players in the front office or your average hockey man. That is the biggest step of all of this, and he does it really well. And he does it well blending different viewpoints. And I think this is the big thing too, right? He's really smart and translates it and explains and educates people. But he
Yes.
also has managed and led their scouting department for the last few years. So he has that perspective as well too. He has the leadership qualities and the management qualities, but he's also handling your traditional scouting and finding ways to blend the two viewpoints and balance them. If they don't agree, here's why. And you figure it out, right? He has all the tools at his disposal, helps it trickle down the entire organization, and has helped build the Canes to what they are today. To me, that is all so impressive. He's overqualified for the job, if anything. I know everyone wants to look at it and go, yeah, well, but he's a nerd. I don't give a shit. He is way overqualified for it. And you can just see the way he has built up his resume over the last few years and expanded, I think, what he was doing originally, right? Because at first we think of him as a blogger and one of us, and he is. It feels like the first GM who's one of us, so we're all extra pumped, but he's expanded on his skill set over the years too to get to this point.
The scouting and drafting, you'll notice the Hurricanes always go, or not always, but like when they have the opportunity for a high ceiling, they love it. And I know I've talked to like Darren York, who's the head of scouting, and he's just said they have the freedom and the understanding from like like Tulsky and Waddel at the time to do that, because in other front offices, sometimes it's like you're safer, your job security, if you go for something that isn't a risk but has a lower ceiling, But it's like, how many of these third or fourth round picks really do end up panning out? It's like you're better off in the long run in the law of averages going for the higher ceiling. And somebody like Tulsky not only understands and promotes that, but can explain it to the rest of maybe the older folks in the front office. And on me, like he never gave me like, they're tight-lipped about stuff. And he never gave me like specific, they're trading for this. But if I had written an article or if I'm about to, I'm like, can you explain the fucking every day they're closer to the cap. You know what I mean? Like they're giving 50 cents more. I never understood that. And he would sit there with like emojis trying to explain it to me. And I still don't fully get it, but he wouldn't give up. And he was so patient. So he's patient with like, it's not like he's coming in and he's like, this is the math. It's like he's very patient in explaining it to people that might not get it.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, we will watch to see how Eric Tulsky does as he gets elevated. Another organization, and I don't want to get into the specifics of the people. I'm more curious what we think of the overall strategy. And I'm talking about the St. Louis Blues, who came out earlier this week or last week, whatever time flat circle, and announced an extension for their current GM, Doug Armstrong, but also named their next general manager, Alexander Steen, who won't start being the general manager until, wait for it, folks, the 2029-2030 season. Like,
what?
We talk about hockey making these changes. We've just gone through this season alone. How many coaching changes, how many GM changes, movement of teams. From a pure business perspective, this absolutely blows my mind. Shayna, forget the choices, forget the people involved, just the idea to plan out this far in advance in hockey. Your thoughts?
It's wild. Like, listen, coaches, their average tenure for coaches is what? I think it was 2.3 years before the Pascal Vincent firing. So it's already dropped, right? General managers are a lot longer than that. So I'll give them that. But still, it's very confident for the Blues, for Armstrong to be like, yeah, that's going to be me till then. I like the idea of building out a plan a year ahead of time,
For
right?
sure.
Because it's better than a clean break. And you look at the Predators, the spoiled Trotz, and it's like, hey, you've never been a GM before. Now you're going to work in this front office. You're going to learn the ropes. You're going to learn the organization from a totally different perspective and start building your plan. So when you get the keys and you get to run with it, you are at the ready. I think that is the way it should be when you are an older general manager choosing to retire and have someone take over. This is completely fucked up to me. You can hire Steen in your front office. He could be a special advisor. You can make him an assistant general manager off the bat. I simply don't give a shit. Hire him in some sort of capacity and let him learn the ropes, and then decide, first of all, if you think he's going to be the guy to take it over. You could tell him, hey, the plan is going to be training you for this moment. So we want you to get into the front office and get to work and everything. But to decide it this soon, like, what if he's terrible at the job? What if Armstrong doesn't last that long? Like, how does ownership have any thoughts on this? I mean, I can't imagine a decision like this not going through ownership. But then again, like, every team structured differently. You don't know. It's very odd to me. It's just an odd commitment. I would say 1 year, even 2, I would be like, all right, sure, right? Because he has no experience. This is something else.
Sara, any other reactions?
No, it's baffling. I mean, that's weird and bad.
Weird
What else
and bad.
is new?
Weird and bad. We like it. All right. Well, there are 2. We are entering the season now, my friends, where we find out if players stay at teams where they are or where they head to next. It can be interesting or it can be a bust, but we are starting to see some movement as we head into the draft, trades, and the beginning of free agency, and some dominoes are starting to fall. First up, going to the Vancouver Canucks, who I really thought would be very interested in keeping Zadorov around after he performed on the blue line. They only have so much money. They had a couple big chip players to potentially consider to sign, and it looks like they've made one choice in terms of who gets to stay and therefore implying who gets to go. And that is signing Filip Hronek, who's played on their top pair, to an 8 by $7.25 million extension. To me, that does seem a little steep for Quinn Hughes' partner. Shayna, what did you make of this extension that was announced, and also what this implies about now who is not necessarily going to be staying up in the Pacific Northwest?
I don't hate it, but I think it's an overpayment. And I think that when you're a team that wants to keep your group together and whatnot, like, you can have a couple overpayments, but you need to decide where. And if you're a team with the cap space and the flexibility to do that, and I don't know if the Canucks are, I think the thing is they sunk a lot of assets into Filip Hronek, and they might feel like it's a sunk cost already, right? It was a 1st and 2nd round pick, if I remember correctly, last year. So they may feel like, hey, we've already dedicated ourselves to him and he's kind of like lived up to what they hoped for. I know he slowed down the stretch into the postseason, but he also had a really good regular season for them. He was great after the deadline. And the big thing is he was the best partner that Quinn Hughes has ever had. Obviously, Quinn Hughes elevated his game a lot, but he did compliment Quinn Hughes, and Hughes has spoken about it, how open that he felt he could play his game because he had this type of player on his side. To be a right-handed defender who's a little on the younger side than a lot of UFAs with arbitration rights put the Canucks in a bind. So I think we have to keep that in mind. And the other thing was his actual salary, if I remember right, was $5.5 million this past season. So he wasn't going to go for that small of a raise, even though that's more than his cap hit. If they could have managed to get him for 6.5, I would have loved this deal. If they could have gotten anywhere under 7, I would have loved this deal. I don't hate it, but I get it. They see something with their team and they want to keep building off it. So here's your overpayment. Now where can they make cuts to balance everything out?
So Sara, let's talk about that. To those cuts, there were some big chip trades. I already mentioned Zadorov. They obviously also brought over Elias Lindholm from Calgary, who maybe wasn't as spectacular as expected until the postseason, but this seems to imply that those two players will be headed to the free market. In terms of the other dominoes that now seemingly fall, do you agree with this move by the Canucks?
No, no. They got some other stuff that they need to take care of. I'd rather see. I don't know. I'm not that impressed by him. I'm sorry. You think about Slavin might be going for 8 by 6.5.
Right.
It's like, that is a hometown deal and the cap is raising, but the Canucks have some work to do and not a lot of space to do it. So you would have wished they'd put it down a little bit, but I just saw a report that Zadorov really wants to stay in Vancouver, and that Dan Milstein, who we all know and we love and we hate, like he's a really funny agent. He's willing to be patient was the quote that cracked me up. It's like he's willing to be patient with Zadorov, not with the Canucks. He's like, we're getting you paid, and Zadorov's like, no, but he's like, fine. But that's probably a good sign. So we'll see how the dominoes fall.
Absolutely. Well, Calgary has been very active. We've talked about 2 players that left them already, and now another big piece of their roster moves on as they seemingly continue to go through a breakdown and build up, at the very least, if not a full rebuild. And that is their goaltender. Shayna already alluded to this, but thank you, Calgary, for announcing this before we started recording. It makes our lives so much easier. Jacob Markstrom, who before in the regular season was rumored to be on the table and was rumored to be headed to New Jersey, is now actually heading to New Jersey. Defender ball and a first-round pick in 2025 headed back to Calgary. Calgary is also retaining 30% of the salary. Look at me. I remembered all of that without having to look it up. It's a rare day. But again, I don't think the move is shocking because it had been alluded to for a while. But Shayna, maybe the return isn't what was originally expected. I know you were hearing some rumblings, not necessarily specifics, but what do you like about this deal? And could Calgary have gotten more, in your opinion?
I think Calgary could have gotten more had they made this deal sooner. Like Markstrom was having a Vezina caliber season before the deadline. Like, let's not forget that. And I know like some models, like Evolving Hockey's model, it was like a big gap in how many goals saved of expected he had versus other models. And, you know, like in talking to Luke and Josh, they were saying like it might be because of the way their model calculates things like off broken plays and giveaways, which is huge, right? That's a perfect fit for the Devils. The Devils' speedy style, they need a goalie who can stand up and be ready for those breakdowns that inevitably happen with like a young team that play the way that they do. So on paper, this is a perfect fit for the Devils. You would think the Flames could try to squeeze a little bit more out of them. And it seems like there might have been different offers made back at the deadline that didn't happen. And it seems like the Flames really hurt their leverage here. I know he's 34. I know he has a no movement clause, but everybody knows the Devils are looking for a goaltender. And it feels like the fact that Markstrom expressed how unhappy he was with how everything went down in the spring really killed their leverage, on top of the fact that like everybody knew this had to happen to go along with the Flames retool, where numerous trades they've gotten less than you would have expected because it feels like they overplayed their hand. So it seems like there were better offers on the table months ago from what everything seemed like that weren't made, that dropped down the price. And then you pair that with the fact that the Devils really have been dangling that 2024 first round pick. It's 10th overall. to make a splash, and they didn't have to move it. They didn't have to move Alex Holtz. They didn't have to move Dawson Mercer. All names I think we would have expected to be in the mix for a true number one goaltender, especially one that's coming off the season like he did. So it just feels like the Flames, once again, are in the situation where they underwhelmed with their return.
And we should say too, it's my understanding that the 2025 pick that did go to Calgary is in fact protected as well. So it's not guaranteed. Also, Sara, we liked Markstrom, to Shayna's point, all season. We know New Jersey needed goaltending. Are you excited to see what Markstrom can do now that this is officially done and he is in the Metro with the Devils?
Yeah, I really like him as a person. I thought he has a lot of interesting quotes in the media where he really is honest. I appreciate that. I do like the move for the Devils. I think he wants an opportunity to do better. And yeah, it's crazy to me that people look at his save percentage, which is pretty good. It's like in the 900s, whatever, but being like, I'm not that impressed by him. I'm like, are you seeing the Calgary Flame? Like, are you seeing what's in front of him? This isn't how, please watch a game that he's in. Like, he is really good, in my opinion. And excited. I'm like rooting for a bounce back for him. The Flames, meanwhile, blow it up, shut it down, just like start over.
Yes, we will keep watching because I'm sure there's more moves to be coming, especially when we don't expect them and when we all get excited to see lots of action, like at the draft. We'll all sit there waiting and absolutely nothing will go down. Go ahead.
I got one more right now.
Hit us up.
The Sharks claimed Barclay Goodrow off waivers from the Rangers.
Ooh,
which
I like
is
it.
It's so.
Yeah, walk us through this,
for
Shayna, because this created a lot of noise, but it's not necessarily a reflection on the player specifically.
Yeah. Okay, so everybody knows that when you win a championship, you're probably going to get overpaid, and Barclay Goodrow was one of those players when the Rangers brought him in on a long-term deal. He was very good on the score sheet in the postseason. He came up with big-time goals, which everybody knows he can do, but I think the Rangers are very clear they don't want to just run things back after the way the season ended for them. So you have to make cap space, and here's a player, like, it's great to be a 16-game player, but the Rangers at that cost needed him to be more than that, especially because some of the defensive numbers have been suspect too, which is his strength. So they put him on waivers, which if he cleared, I would have expected a buyout. If not, you see who would have claimed him, because he does have, I think it's a 15-team no trade. I got to double check that. So, he could limit what the Rangers were able to do and maybe spend to clear that. To go back to the Sharks seems like a good move for him, because he was there before. He has familiarity with the Sharks and the area and all things like that. The Sharks could also try to retain salary and flip the rest of his deal. I don't know if they necessarily do that, but the Rangers clear his cap hit without having to pay anything else. So that right there seems like a big win for them, because they have some big decisions to make.
Well, and as we're doing this, because I went to look this up, and again, fuck you, Washington Capitals, because I looked at Cap Friendly to find out what the hell was going on. How dare you take this away from us? The San Jose Sharks have also acquired forward Ty Dellandrea from the Dallas Stars in exchange for a 2025 fourth round selection. So the Sharks are starting to make what could be some savvy moves. We know they needed absolutely to get better. Sara, this is all coming down as we talk. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, hello, it's Celebrini season, so you're going to have to kind of build around him. And this is time for Greer to really become this is his time to really show that he can be an established NHL GM, like once you get the pick.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So San Jose apparently is going to be a team to watch. We love that. Is anyone else going to do any other moves? Have we had any other trades or transactions unless we move on to the Stanley Cup? Shayna's actually literally looking. I can tell. She's got her serious face on. Okay.
What if I became...
Listen, I am trying to.
You are the insider for us.
I have left.
I know. No, you're doing great. Yes.
No,
Sara.
so it was a 15-team no trade list for Goodrow.
Okay.
With 3 years left on his deal.
Sara, were you going to say something?
Not really. I was just going to say, what if I became like somebody who tweets, Barclay Goodrow is taken off waivers? Like, I just completely rebranded and decided to be an insider.
Why not?
What if
people are going to tell you you're wrong? People are going to go, no.
What if we just acknowledge you already are? You had
and then they'll ignore me when I'm right, but that's just how it goes,
That's how it goes. That's why, you know what? You just got to have fun with it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You got to
It's about
find a
the
way to
love of
have
the
your
game.
own fun with it. You should
Right.
just copy and paste other people tweet and put it out there.
You should.
There is a locked account, so I'm going to not mention their name, but he cracks me up because anytime something happens and all the insiders like race to try and be first, he'll just put out and he threads it. So it's like this total thread, like
Yeah.
every saying,
Yeah.
I'm hearing, like, and then the transaction. It's so
Rumblings and grumblings.
all right. Well, let's move on to hockey talk. We have 2 series remaining on the men's hockey. First, the AHL Calder Cup final is going on with the Coachella Valley Firebirds taking a 2-1 series lead in game 3 last night over Hershey Bears. I usually don't, but I'm going to own my bias here. The Hershey Bears always try and spoil other people's party. I want to see the Firebirds get this one for themselves. It'd be an awesome story. But the other final that's underway is, of course, the Stanley Cup final. And the last time we came to you, Alison looked a little foolish as she picked Edmonton to win when they were down 2-0 to the Panthers. And the Panthers would go on to go up 3-0 in the series until game 4, folks, when all of the sudden playoff Bob became what actually was, as Sara pointed out last episode, the original playoff Bob, and let quite a few goals past him before getting pulled. The Panthers lose 8-1. The series switches back to Florida. And then again, Edmonton wins again in what I thought was a really commanding performance by them. The Stars were out. Connor McDavid is up there in terms of total playoff points with only Gretzky and Mario Lemieux ahead of him in one playoff run. I'm not going to make this too complicated. I literally think the Oilers just needed to see that they could beat Bobrovsky. And once they did, now they can go back to playing like they play. I'm not necessarily saying they can win the next 2, but we do, in fact, have ourselves a series. This isn't necessarily what we thought we'd see when we were together last week. Shayna, what have been the ingredients for you in terms of Edmonton turning the tide and starting to look like the Edmonton we thought we would see going into this final?
I think you're completely right. It was sometimes just a matter of knowing you can beat Bobrovsky, and it felt like a dam that just broke. And we're seeing like Bob kind of turn into a pumpkin, and we're seeing the Oilers take over, which we wanted to see to make this a series, right? Like, I think we're seeing them play to their strengths. We see Connor McDavid doing otherworldly things, and we've been seeing the contributions from the other guys, right? The big question with the Oilers, are the other guys ever going to do it? And now you have guys like Holloway chipping in and Fogle, and you're getting goals from defensemen. Like, it's things we didn't see coming. I give a lot of credit to Chris Knobloch. I think he's been really smart with a lot of adjustments he's made. And we criticized him because he went back to Nurse Cece for game 1, but he's changed that. And the forward tweaks have been really good. And also, like the last game 4, it seemed like Bestie Leon was passing the puck a little bit more. Even on the power play, I noticed like instead of when he would take his shot from the angle and he would get the second shot opportunity, he was centering a pass, or he set up Holloway for a goal. So I think that adds a little bit more like mystery to your attack instead of knowing like, hey, he's the one that's going to beat us. So I think that's good. It adds a little bit more dimension to your attack. So all that's great and wonderful. And then special teams. The power play is going, but it's the penalty kill. The penalty kill has been fantastic. They're disrupting the Panthers on the power play, and they're just playing really solid defense, and they're taking away the middle of the ice and a lot of puck movement from them. So it feels like there were ingredients that we all knew were there, but it was just a matter of them kind of coming together and starting to cook.
Sara, what stood out to you as you watched Edmonton, to Shayna's point, come back and actually make this a series?
Connor fucking McDavid. I guess Stuart Skinner too. I mean, he's no chump. Also just really hate the Oilers and their fans. Nothing new here. I really want this to be over. I really hate the amount of days in between everything. I just feel like I'm getting older and more anxious as the days go on. Maybe it's because I accidentally took double my meds yesterday. I was not feeling great. I just really can't, nobody, okay, on the tiers of fans, you got the Montreal Canadiens have the most fans, and I get they're French Canadians. I get
Suddenly
they're allowed
Toronto
to be.
is mad at us again. Go ahead.
Yes, French Canadians can have sass. That's
How does this affect the Leafs? We did it.
Leafs are just sad at this point. They're not really mean to me. Something about the Oilers, you could say anything about the Oilers, and it's a lot of people that are like really sexist. I didn't expect that, but I don't like them. I'm really over this. I like Connor McDavid. Don't like Corey Perry. I didn't think it was a hot take to be like he harassed his colleague. I thought everybody knew that. Everyone's like, where's the proof? I'm like, it is out there. What? So I said that. Everyone's mad.
Can we think about how bad something is for an NHL team to get rid of a player mid-season for doing something when that literally never fucking happens? Can we please?
Right.
The Blackhawks had nothing to lose, just burying his cap hit. They literally got rid of the guy. So something happened, and we don't forget it because he scores a fucking goal in the playoffs. It was the same with Evander Kane, and it's the same thing here.
And it was McDavid's goal. Like, all period. Okay, Connor McDavid, I'm happy for you. Draisaitl, your bestie.
Zach Hyman.
Did nothing wrong. Zach Hyman, you are a Nepo baby, but we'll allow it. Stuart Skinner, you know what? The mustache is going places. I'm fine with this, I guess. There's no choice. Just please let it end.
Well, we have analysis of all aspects of the game, people. That's what you come here for.
This is the best analysis I've ever heard on the Oilers.
So here's my last hard-hitting question, which is, again, going to hopefully try and cover the spectrum. Shayna, you praised Chris Knobloch for how well he has managed. We have all talked about how well he has managed his deployment and his roster. More critical lineup change going into Game 6. Put Evander Kane in. Excuse me, let me flip it. Keep Evander Kane out, or make sure Shania Twain is in the building. Go.
Make sure Shania Twain's in the building. She brought the vibes. I'm sorry, Evander Kane couldn't even go from sitting to standing, and you saw his play. Like, you see it when you're watching it, but I was looking at hockey stat cards, and I wanted to see his game score, how it's gone. And you literally see from the point he got that injured, it just completely tanked in every which way, below the surface, on the score sheet. You cannot play that man. But Shania Twain, you can play that shit all day long. Hell yeah. I hope she's there. You know what? She's the key to it. Think about it. Ariana Grande was there for Florida for games 1 and 2, and look what happened. We need more stars in the building. This is the way we grow the game. So if the Oilers did not get her there again, I don't fucking know what we're doing anymore. Cancel the cup.
Sara, your thoughts on the increased importance on Shania Twain's presence?
It's good. There's never enough Shania Twain, no matter where we are, what we're doing. She's welcome anywhere.
Well, there are 2 days between each of the remaining 2 games, so we will have to wait to Friday to see if Edmonton can extend and head down for another one of the longest trips in Stanley Cup final history and force a Game 7. If they force a Game 7, I'm going to go on record and say this is going to make this one of the best finals that there's been, because
it's going to be like the Oilers regular season. Can you think about that?
Yeah,
the Oilers regular season when they fucking died and came back to life, like the
100%.
Undertaker gif.
And
now
only the best player in the world
like
can do that.
Yeah.
That's McDavid's
Sorry,
signature.
Alison. It's bursting out of my brain. Like, I had to put that. Like, I need this. You're right. It'll be the best Stanley Cup final.
It's well, and that's what I'm saying. They just needed to see they could beat Bob, because they literally know they can run off, 16 total wins and call it a day. It's going to be interesting. All right. So we will see what happens in Game 6 and Game 7. At this point, while I am invested in the outcome for other reasons, regardless of the outcome, I'm very invested in the 7-game final because I just think it would be magnificent. All right. Let's wrap this one up with our very favorite game, and that is Fuck, Marry, Kill. And we are going to make up our own award ballot. We've been going through the major NHL awards, but a lot of these are getting handed out, and that's boring, and it makes it lame to have to predict things or take things off our list because they've already been picked. So we want to talk about the Conn Smythe possible winners. As is tradition, Sara, you are up first. In terms of FMK, these are your Conn Smythe winners for playoff MVP, Sergei Bobrovsky, Alexander Barkov, or bestie Connor McDavid. The floor is yours.
We're marrying McDavid. I think the effort. Nobody in NHL history has 8 points in 2 games, right? Or whatever the stat is, which is unbelievable. Like, okay, everybody needs to get better, but whatever. McDavid's the only one that's good, I guess. Just unbelievable if they can pull this off. If they can pull this off. If not, I'm going fuck Sergei Bobrovsky. He has had game 1 there was like a masterclass, and the only way they're going to be able to pull it off at this point too is if he has another game 1. Killing, what is it, Barkov?
Yep.
I'll kill Barkov. No offense. Love you. You're having the best time and we appreciate you and your game, but there's too many impactful forwards on the Panthers side of the ice.
Shayna.
Okay. I'm going to marry McDavid. I don't care what happens with the Oilers, win or lose. What he's doing is unbelievable. It has been all postseason, not just this series. Even when he wasn't scoring in games 1 and 2, he still looked outstanding. He was the one player, every time he was on the ice, you had to be watching him because he was trying to make magic happen. And he has in huge moments. He's the reason the Oilers season is keeping going. And he's a reason they made it to the Stanley Cup final, the shit he did in game 6 against Dallas. He is the best player in the world, and he is showing it on the biggest stage. Give it to him no matter what. I will fuck Barkov, because I do think Barkov's been amazing. I don't think someone like Gus Forsling's going to get the hype because he brings it more defensively, not offensively, while Barkov gives you the best of both worlds. I think he's gone up against top competition this whole postseason. You look at Kucherov, to Pastrnak, to Zibanejad, to Draisaitl, McDavid, and I think heading into game 4, I think in their head-to-head minutes, he held them to just 2 points, all of them. A collective 2 points. Like, that's amazing. So I have to give him the credit there. And if the Panthers win, I think he's going to be a big part of it, shutting him down. I will kill Bob. I know Bob was outstanding in game 1 against the Oilers, and he's had a couple great games, game 1 against the Rangers or the closeout game against Tampa. But to me, he's not consistently been the difference for the Panthers. He was that last year, but this is a new season, and I just don't think it's up to the level. I think if the Panthers close the door the next game, maybe he is perfect and we're going to be like swayed by that. But I just think that there have been more impactful players on both sides ahead of him.
All right. You're both making compelling arguments. I am going to agree with Sara. I am going to marry Connor because also, you guys, we completely didn't talk about the fact that he has done all this leading his team in the face of adversity with so many of the Edmonton Wags literally in London.
They're back though.
What are they doing? Is it like a bachelorette party?
I don't think so. I think the bachelorette party that we're all expecting has already happened earlier.
Okay, my guess is this was for Draisaitl's girlfriend's birthday because it was her birthday, and I think this trip was probably planned because maybe no one saw them going this long, but they were back for game 4.
They have their own lives. They said,
no, for sure.
I'm
a
model.
No, I think it's fantastic. I think it's fantastic.
And then
it's a
think
joke.
of the other narrative, right?
Exactly. With the Rangers.
Oh, their girlfriends and shut up, everyone.
Exactly. So I am going to marry Connor McDavid. I think what he's been doing is otherworldly, and I'm actually going to give this man credit for what he's been doing off the ice too. Like, this is usually a guy who's pretty salty and pretty stoic with the media. And I think particularly when he's going down to a market like Florida, that where hockey is still catching on and fighting for a ton of territory in a really busy sports landscape. Like, I saw him on Good Morning America, and like the reporter was doing a good job, but they obviously don't understand things. And he was so patient and like really laid things out. I think he is taking seriously and doing things he doesn't usually like to do to make the most of the experience and present himself and his team in the best light that he can when they're on the biggest stage. So it's on the ice and off the ice for me. I was actually going to kill Bob, but I'm actually going to fuck Bob because, as Sara was talking about how huge he was in game 1, when he's not that way, like, that just shows how important he is, because the rest of the team hasn't really been able to respond when he can't be such a huge force in net. So I think he's more important, and his failures have actually shown us that, if that makes sense. And so therefore, by process of elimination, I will kill Barkov. Sorry, I love you, but this is how the game goes. There are rules and we follow them, sort of. All right. Anything we missed, friends?
I think we got it all.
Got it all. We're going to drag this series out to 7, just like Connor. Shania is going to drag this series out to 7.
Drag, what was his quote?
Any
Drag the
man of
Panthers
hers.
back to
Back to Alfred. To the quotes, everything, like every single
This
quote
is
he's
what I'm
giving, I'm
saying.
like, yeah. When you said that, I'm like, you're so right. It's so good because you don't expect it, and he's like bringing the heat, and he does it. The delivery of it, I'm like, yes, Connor.
Yep.
Like, come on, this is what we needed in this series. You want to see something like it was Kachuk last year doing this. Now we're getting it from Connor. Perfect.
100%. And my kingdom for there to be an American post-game show so that we can see the availabilities and things like this. Like, it's just so frustrating. I know. That's for another day. All
I
right,
get my nightly news instead. Fucking love it.
I know. All right, my friends, this is where we leave you for now. As a reminder, if you would like to connect with us or yell at us, we did have someone yelling at us that we've been down on Edmonton all season, just waiting for them to fail. And sir, I remind you, I picked them to win the cup. So thank you very much in this series. Regardless, if you want to rant at us, if you want to tell us we're great, if you want to ask us to do things for you, you can find us at social, which is at 2_much_man on the Twitters and on the Instagrams and on the YouTubes. If you want to look at our beautiful faces as we give you our rants and thoughts and discussions. No rants this week, guys. We'll have to get back to form. You can also represent us if you want some merch. It's summer, it's warm. Get a t-shirt for Bito News, a Torts t-shirt, maybe a baseball cap. The caps are really, really nice. Shayna and I both got them and we love them. Maybe some drinkware to hold that lovely frosty beverage as you sit by the pool while you represent your very favorite podcast at TooManyMenMerch.com. And as we leave you, as I remind you, in honor of Pride Month, if you can, please do something, no matter how big or small, to make sure that hockey truly is for literally everyone. We will talk to you soon.
Love you. Go Celtics.
Bye.